November 1985 issue of Wrestling Eye marked the premiere issue of this wrestling magazine, covering both the WWF and NWA landscapes while also featuring international wrestling. It positioned itself as a publication offering facts over fiction, contrasting with the more sensationalized wrestling magazines of the era. Major highlights from the issue. 1. Cover story and featured articles. Hulk Hogan, profile of a champion. Ric Flair, the true world's champion. The baddest of the bad, top 10 villains. Road Warriors, breaking up is hard to do. Bob Backlund, the restless exile. Ivan Putski, Polish powers forever. History of women's wrestling. Who is Cyndi Lauper? A nod to wrestling's connection with pop culture. Detailed breakdown of key articles. Hulk Hogan, profile of a champion. The article depicts Hulk Hogan's rise in the WWF, detailing his transformation from a heel managed by Freddie Blassie into the ultimate Hulkster persona. Highlights Hogan's victory over the Iron Sheik in 1984, which catapulted him into superstardom. Describes how Sylvester Stallone cast him in Rocky III as Thunderlips, elevating his mainstream appeal. Speculates about Hollywood pulling Hogan away from wrestling, citing his work on the TV pilot Goldie and the Bears. Ric Flair, the true world's champion? A deep dive into Flair's NWA championship reign, presenting him as the real world champion due to his international defenses. Discusses Flair's legitimate athletic background, including football, amateur wrestling, and his rigorous training under Vern Gine. Recaps major rivalries. Dusty Rhodes, Harley Race, Saunter Slaughter, and Kerry Von Erich. Highlights the Starrcade events, particularly Starrcade 83, which was viewed as the template for WWF's WrestleMania. Mentions Flair's attempts to unify the WWF and NWA titles, including his one-hour draw with Bob Backlund. The 10 Baddest Villains in Wrestling, a ranking of the top 10 most villainous wrestlers in 1985. 1. Kamala, the Ugandan giant, known for his savage, unpredictable style. 2. Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, charismatic, manipulative, and always accompanied by Precious. 3. King Kong Bundy, a 400-plus-pound wrecking machine with brute force. 4. Randy Savage, a former baseball player turned rule-breaking high-flying villain. 5. Big John Studd, focused on retiring Andre the Giant. 6. Kevin Sullivan, mastermind of the Satanic Army of Darkness. 7. Larry Zbyszko, infamous for betraying Bruno Sammartino. 8. Don Morocco, managed by Mr. Fuji and known for brass knuckles and street fights. 9. Abdullah the Butcher, the master of hardcore bloodbaths. 10. Roddy Piper, the ultimate agitator in and out of the ring. This list was an interesting snapshot of 1985's heel scene, with a mix of psychological masterminds, powerhouses, and hardcore brawlers. Road Warriors, breaking up is hard to do. Explores tension within the Road Warriors, with rumors that manager Paul Ellering was controlling and manipulative. Suggests that Hawk and Animal were growing resentful of Ellering's tight grip. Mentions their dominance in both AWA and NWA, but questions whether their aggressive, dominant tag team persona could survive. Bob Backlund, the restless exile, discusses Bob Backlund's departure from the WWF after Vince McMahon Jr. deemed him too clean-cut for the 1980s era. Covers his loss to the Iron Sheik, where manager Arnold Skaaland threw in the towel. Notes Backlund's transition to Pro Wrestling USA, where he remained a pure technical wrestler but struggled to connect with fans post-Hogan's rise. Ivan Putski, Polish Power is Forever, features Ivan Putski's transition from a powerhouse wrestler to a bodybuilder. Mentions his rivalry with superstar Billy Graham, Ivan Koloff, and the Iron Sheik. Explores his Polish heritage and his commitment to clean living, avoiding drugs and smoking. Despite his new focus on bodybuilding, Putski insisted he would never turn heel. Editorial, Thank You, Hogan and Flair. A thank you letter to both Hogan and Flair, crediting them for revitalizing wrestling's popularity. Acknowledges the rise of WrestleMania and Starrcade, as well as the mainstream attention pro wrestling was receiving. Reinforces the magazine's goal of presenting facts over fiction, unlike its competitors. Notable departments and features: Pinups, Centerfold, Animal vs. Jim Brunzell, Ric Flair, Tommy Rich, Junkyard Dog, Jesse Ventura, Misty Blue Sims. Media Report, reviews of wrestling books, including The Pictorial History of Wrestling and Hulkamania. Mentions Champ Thomas's wrestling books, which provided an inside look into the business. International Report, British wrestling scene, mentioning Big Daddy and the British Bulldogs. Coverage of wrestling in Germany, South Africa, and Australia. Rookie of the Month, Burke Van Camp, a promising new face in wrestling. Promoter of the Month, Jerry Lindsay, recognized for his work in the industry. Wrestler of the Month, Harley Race, acknowledged as a veteran and legend. Final thoughts. This premiere issue of Wrestling Eye was a well-rounded mix of WWF, NWA, AWA, and international wrestling coverage. It balanced kayfabe storytelling with real-world analysis, presenting wrestlers like Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair as larger-than-life figures, while providing insight into behind-the-scenes dynamics. Biggest takeaways from the issue. Hogan and Flair were presented as the top champions of their respective promotions, though Flair was framed as the more legitimate world champion. The Road Warriors were portrayed as a ticking time bomb for a split. Bob Backlund's WWF departure was presented as a moral stand against Vince McMahon Jr. The villain rankings captured the state of wrestling in 1985, with larger-than-life characters dominating the industry. Women's wrestling and pop culture crossovers, e.g. Cyndi Lauper, were acknowledged but not deeply explored. How it stands today. Looking back, this issue is a time capsule of 1985 wrestling, providing early insights into stars like Randy Savage, King Kong Bundy, and the British Bulldogs, while cementing Hogan and Flair's legendary status. It also hints at shifts in the industry, from Backlund's exile to the possibility of Hollywood luring Hogan away.